right, so we're going to take a look at that visit for Theresa May. Remember, I also said German Chancellor Angela Merkel is also in Africa, West Africa to be specific. She's in Senegal. Later on, she will go to Nigeria as well as Ghana. A lot of people are calling this the second scramble for Africa. We'll dive into that later on. But of course, our biggest story within State of the Nation today, we want to take a look at what is happening, the drama behind the high legal team, and that of Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, who through her lawyers moved to block High Court from her appearing to plea, only for Justice Chacha rather to also appeal or to agree to that plea. Then Chief Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi to say, for me, this doesn't work, especially with the court case that is in front of him. It's Game of Thrones, back and forth, and Kenyans have the front row seat. If you're just joining us, allow me to reintroduce my panel this morning. Sitting closer to me, I have Ambrose Weda. He is an advocate. Honorable Kembi Gitura, the immediate former senator for Murang'a County. On my far right, I have Honorable Kipruto Arab Kira, deputy party leader to the ANC. Gentlemen, remember this? We will revisit the judiciary, something President Uhuru Kenyattas said last year. And we've also seen with this financial year, cost cutting for the judiciary service for the next 2018-2019 financial year. Honorable Kembi, is this Uhuru Ruto making amends to that statement that we had, we will revisit the judiciary?
I honestly don't think so. I don't know whether you remember Honorable Chief Justice Maraga recently in an interview on one-on-one. I don't remember which media house it was, but he said, and I remember clearly, that when the president made those remarks, immediately his election was nullified. Maraga called it a moment of anger. Yeah? And one could understand. I mean, you've just won an election, then a court comes and says you haven't won, there has to be a repeat. I mean, we are human beings at the end of the day. You may be president, you may be queen, but at the end of the day, you are a human being and you have human reaction.
Right.
The issue about revisiting the judiciary may be quoted a lot of times out of context. And I'm not defending the president, but I want to make this position clear. If by saying we shall revisit the judiciary at that moment, because he was still president, if he meant he was going to have a purge on the issue of corruption, then yes, we have to revisit the judiciary. Because judiciary is supposed to be the bastion of, that thing that, Caesar's wife, that kind of thing. And if there is corruption in the judiciary, then, and like we know there is, I mean, let's not pretend. I've practiced in those courts for many, many years.
Yes.
Well, we know there is corruption. We also know that there are lots and lots of judges who are genuine, who are doing a very, very great job at it, who are not corrupt, and who want to do the best. We know that. But then there are those very rotten potatoes too. Was it potatoes or tomatoes or whatever?
Potatoes, tomatoes.
Yeah, whatever. So if revisiting the judiciary meant that it would be subject to the purge in the fight against corruption, then so be it. The issue of the budget to the judiciary, we've said it here, we said it last time, but I think, when I was here, that it would be unfortunate if Parliament is cutting the budget of the judiciary with a view to punishing it for whatever reason, because of their tiffs or every once in a while. Judiciary should be properly funded so that it is itself internally is able to fight with issues like corruption. Mr. Justice Maraga, and a gentleman for whom I have the greatest respect, Mr. Justice Maraga has himself said that the corrupt have no place in his judiciary.
Right, and whether do you agree with that, the budget slash, and of course Uhuru, out of flair and out of emotion, they are saying that we'll revisit the judiciary, was not a statement in the sense that he would want to, put them down, but that look at the corruption in itself?
Yeah, I think he's right that when the president spoke, I was there. It was out of anger. It was a surprise because the court had said, we are not looking at the figures. We're looking at the process, and the process was not controlled by the president's team, and elections are very expensive. So there was anger. When the decision came, remember the president came out of State House all the way to Jogo Road, because there was also confusion. So out of that, we said, we will deal with you, but more out of anger. The only thing we must admit is that there is no love lost between the Maraga judiciary, the Maraga Supreme Court, and the executive. There is no love lost. They just tolerate each other. But if the President Uhuru had a chance, the President Uhuru's side had a chance, they would replace all of them. If Maraga's side also had a chance, they would replace this. They are not friends. So going by that, you will find that if you are not clean 100%, there's always a chance that one side will use it to deal with you. In such a scenario, your security is how clean you are. But we say, if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and there's no truth in us. So they went for the sin, the sins that the Deputy Chief Justice could have committed earlier. And they said, now we have something against you.
All right.
We will deal with you on this.
Okay.
You get it? And that is therefore where you can say, is it revisiting? But it is more because they are not friends and people are not as clean as they should be.
Right. Yes. Gentlemen, if you look at the office of DCJ, Nancy Baraza, and that of Kalpana Rawal, and now Philomena Mwilu, one would say the DCJ's office is jinxed. Honorable Kipruto, your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to be superstitious because that's really dangerous at this day and age. What's happening is that possibly it is an unfortunate situation. But I pray that it's not what Ambrose Weda is saying.
Right.
That now we are revisiting with a view to settling scores. Because we are not supposed to be even lovers or to be, there should be no love lost between these institutions, but they must accept the principle of democracy. That there must be an interface that is healthy between one institution and the other. Many other people are worried that possibly this could be a purge on Supreme Court with a view to succession. Remember, Justice Maraga before 2022 is going to retire. And when he does retire, probably whoever will be the deputy is going to take over. Now, could it be the case and therefore we find Philomena a victim of this? That is something that many other people are saying. Number two, we get worried when the executive or legislature does want to inflict pain on the judiciary by cutting the budget. That is a very worrying trend because they ought to get the requisite resources to perform, because the three arms of government must be truly independent for us to be able to enjoy the democratic space that we have struggled to have at this particular time. So if the president was to close the tap or the National Assembly was to close the tap on judiciary, it's a dangerous trend because it means one wants to make one vestigial organ of the three arms of government.
Honorable Kipruto, before we went on break, and I asked you whether she will survive, and I'm glad you brought out the issue of perhaps the scrutiny and the information that was presented to President Uhuru Kenyatta. These crimes were committed 2014, 2015, but then she got a certificate of good conduct in 2016 by the president himself. Nevertheless, are Kenyans supposed to believe all this drama that we're seeing?
It is worrying because it means how many other people are still in the system and they have something to worry about.
Exactly.
And that may mean the system can be compromised by the executive. Because if people in judiciary are worried, okay, I stole somebody's egg the other day, I stole somebody's chicken the other day, and the government is aware of it, that is one way of trying to untwist the judiciary. That is worrying. Number two, you also get worried on the information getting to the president. The president appointed somebody the other day or recommended somebody for appointment only to be arrested before he was vetted. Now, what does it mean? It means somebody refused to give the truth to the president. And that is dangerous. The president should have all the information under the sun about an individual before he pens somebody's name, he puts somebody's name on paper.
And does that question the vetting process that we have in Kenya?
The vetting process, we've said before, is a sham. It depends on which political equation you come from. Number two, integrity of information, because NIS of necessity must have information to the president, not to any other person, to the president of the republic, that is not supposed to be with any blemish. Because the president is the only Kenyan that is given that unvetted access to information about any individual of interest. And is the only one who is not subject to any investigation in office, while in office.
Where does seeing the history of that seat, do you think that Mwilu will survive this?
I think if you look at Mwilu's enemies, because the charges he's facing are more out of his enemies than that he received some corruption money. if we receive corruption money, we receive it in cash. It doesn't pass through banks. We know that. So, but his her enemies are so great that chances that she will survive to become the Chief Justice are actually in doubt. What I may look at in terms of vetting process, I was reading some books about the Mafia Chronicles and how they operate and big government. And I read somewhere that if you are clean like Caesar's wife or like Jesus Christ, you will not be allowed into higher positions in government. There must be some skeletons that occasionally are used to control you when you get over. When you become interesting, then they remind you that, Mr. Weda, you remember you took so-and-so's wife, you remember you stole this, so please go slow, and then you say, yes, sir, I appreciate. So these people went to indiscretions here and there, alleged indiscretions against her, and they said, okay, when you sit in the Supreme Court and you say process must be clean, all this, your turn, also tell us how you made these transfers, how this conveyancing was done. So the vetting does not necessarily look for the good people. The vetting is basically, when you go in, will you go randy or we can control you?
All right, but as much as you're saying she might have strong enemies, as of yesterday and what we saw in the court, she also has strong friends. 13 of the top lawyers in the country are backing her up. Here, just an example, James Orengo, the ODM Senator, Millie Odhiambo, Peter Kaluma, Mutula Kilonzo Jr. from Wiper, Nelson Harvey, who is Raila's lawyer. We also seen Haron Dumbi. I mean, these are great minds within the legal firm, legal fraternity that are backing her up. 13 lawyers. Others have even gone to say 32 of them.
Let me explain to you. Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu has is reported to have a very close relationship with Amos Wako. Very close. The rest you can investigate. That will explain the avalanche of the ODM NASA wing, senators and lawyers backing her. That is one. Two, she has been a deputy chief justice at the JSC. The battle in courts, inside the courts, chances are that the High Court will quash these charges. That is 60% vis-a-vis 40%. What I'm saying is that even if she retains the position, chances that she will be the Chief Justice have been lowered. Then the other fight would be, you remember, you can act if the Chief Justice leaves. The battle is to ensure she does not even act.
All right, Honorable
Because when she acts, she can control the process.
Look at all these top lawyers. We've even seen Kalonzo Musyoka coming out and also defending and using his legal experience. Something that we didn't even see with the ex-governor Kidero, who was the first Nairobi governor under the ODM ticket. Why so much support and flair within the legal fraternity?
Why do you call them top lawyers?
Are they not people like Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.?
Well, maybe we look at, for those of us that have practiced law, maybe we look at top lawyers differently.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are some there who are quite senior in top. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they are top. The 13 of them are top lawyers. I don't know. Let's disabuse that notion. You know, the people. A lot of these are people we know at a very personal level. We practice law together. We practice law before them. Some of them were in school together, the university and law school. So these are not areas one would like to delve in and seem personal about it. Is Lady Justice Mwilu going to survive this? I don't know. But I want to give law a chance. And that's the beauty about law. Because now she is before, it's a pretty difficult situation because now she's not even before her peers. She's before her juniors, if you think about it. She's the judge of the Supreme Court before a magistrate. Magistrate is the lowest hierarchy in all these matters. You come from a magistrate to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal, to the Supreme Court. So you can imagine. And I want to believe that there will be no intimidation, that justice is going to be done. Because that's all we ask for. And I don't agree with what Ambrose said earlier about about fight or people not liking each other or about the succession. I don't want to second guess these issues. On this panel, we've discussed corruption. And last Thursday, I said we are going to discuss corruption for a very long time in Kenya because it's a live subject. And I want to believe that we are going to see Justice Mwilu, like all the other people accused of corruption, go through the system fairly before a competent court, and that justice is going to be done. Because at the level of an accused person, and I think it was the deputy DPP, Dorcas Oduo, who said that yes, and she said it with a lot of respect, I watched her, that although she is the Deputy Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, this morning she is here as an accused person. That was an important statement coming from Dorcas Oduo, yeah? Because at the end of the day, whatever I may think about Lady Justice Mwilu, at the moment she's an accused person. And she must be given the right to defend herself the same way every other corrupt person, the Kideros and all those others are going to get a right. And I want to hope that justice is going to be done and that there will be no corruption in the dispensation of justice at that level or at any other level.
All right, nevertheless, whether she succeeded or not, just a general question to help us so Kenyans understand. Take us through or walk us through, very likely, the process of succession of a DCJ.
It's easy. I mean, nobody is assured. I was looking at the Constitution again this morning, and Article 167 and 168 clearly set out, of the Constitution, clearly set out the qualifications of a judge of the Supreme Court, a judge of the Court of Appeal, and a judge of the High Court. It's clear. And as long as you reach the threshold, I'm sure Weda has been an advocate for many more than 15 years. I've been there for more than 30 years. And I qualify to be to the seat of a Chief Justice,
right, by
dint of my career, my career progression.
Right.
So when finally Mr. Justice Maraga retires after he attains the 70 years or does 10 years, whatever the case, there'll be a succession. Is it going to be the DCJ? Not necessarily. It's not automatic. And it says clearly that if Maraga, for instance, reaches 10 years before he is 70, he can opt to continue to be a judge of the Supreme Court. Then a Supreme Court, another Chief Justice will be appointed. You see the process.
Yes.
And at that moment, you might find there will be 8 judges of the Supreme Court.
Right.
Then that's what Article 168 of the Constitution says, I think 168. So there is no assurance to any of the 6 people sitting there that after Justice Maraga retires, any of them will become the Chief Justice.
All right, Honorable Kipruto, should Kenyans read into this when you have a lot of her lawyers being from ODM party? Should we read into this? Perhaps it has to do with 2022 or the presidential petition that we saw?
No, I think it may just be a coincidence because you see, the case of a Deputy Chief Justice being taken to court is a very high-profile case, regardless of the substance of the matter. And therefore, any lawyer would want to be part of that bandwagon. And